Hi everyone, this is Asim here. Welcome back to our channel. So in this episode, we are going to see about cross-site WebSocket hijacking. So we are going to solve a port figure lab on the same thing, and we're going to see how it is to be done. So first, we would see the article about that, and we would read it, and we would see how this is done and why this is still exploitable. Then we are going to solve the lab where we have to exfiltrate data from one of the users, and in that data, like the chat data, there would be a password. Using that password, we have to log into the account to solve the lab. So here in this particular mission, they have mentioned that you need to have the burp collaborator so that you get the exfiltrate data on their website on the exfiltrated.net. So that you could see the burp collaborator client, and there you could see the exfiltrated data. But I would show you that you could use the same thing and you could use any other domain, like you would be using request bin so as to get the exfiltrated data, and you could use that to show the impact. Because burp collaborator requires the pro version, so many of you might not have that. So let's start with the article and the lab. So post the lab exploitation, I would show you some of the reports based on cross-site WebSocket hijacking, and then one of the articles that was published quite back with which I started reading about cross-site WebSocket hijacking. So all the links would be in the description, so do check them out. Now let's start with the article. So this is the Portugal article. I would have the link in the description. So this is our cross-site WebSocket hijacking. So it's basically a CSRF attack, but on WebSockets. So most of the frameworks prevent prevent CSRF by adding a anti-CSRF token. But it's usually seen that in WebSocket connection, people forget to do the same. So what's the impact of cross-site WebSocket hijacking? It's basically the same as CSRF, that you could perform any unauthorized actions. You could retrieve sensitive data that user could access using a CSRF attack. So they mentioned that the first step to performing a test is to review the WebSocket handshakes that the application carries out and determine whether they are protected against CSRF attack. So we would see this in the burp window here. So in terms of normal condition, you typically need find a handshake that relies solely on HTTP keys for session handling and doesn't employ any token. So doesn't employ any token mean basically that it doesn't have any anti-CSRF token. So in this particular lab, you would get to see some similar kind of request, which would have a get chat endpoint. So you could see that there is this random key WebSocket key, but you would see the note here that this contains a random value to prevent errors from caching proxies, and it's not used for authentication. Like it's randomly generated on the client side to prevent caching proxies to cache that, but it's not being validated on the server side. Like there's no check for authentication, so there's no check for that. The session is maintained solely upon the cookie here. So, and as you could easily guess that if you are sending a request to another domain, the cookies are automatically added by the Google Chrome, by the browser. But we would see in the later half of the video that how this is being prevented in by recent upgrades to Google Chrome and other Firefox and all those browsers. So I earlier mentioned about that article in one of my earlier videos as well, so you could check that as well. The attack might involve sending WebSocket messages to perform unauthorized access actions on behalf of the victim user, sending WebSocket messages to retrieve sensitive data. We would be doing this. Sometimes just waiting for incoming messages. We would also seeing how we have to do this as well. So let's do the lab thing. So this is the lab one here. So this online shop has a live chat feature implemented using WebSockets. So this is the online chat feature. So this is the screen that you would see once you have clicked. Okay, it's expired. So let's close this. So access the lab. So this is the lab here that's being launched. So after the lab's launched, you could see that there is an online chat feature there that's implemented using WebSockets. To solve the lab, use the exploit server to host an HTML or JavaScript payload that uses a CSWH attack to steal the victim's chat history and then gain access to their account. The obvious way to use the exfiltrate victim's history is using burp collaborator. But I would also show you that how you could use a public server as a request bin to exfiltrate data, because it might be the case that you might not have a burp collaborator client. Note that you must use the public burp collaborator, burpcollaborator.net. So for this particular mission, that's required because that's where the port figure has allowed connections, outbound connections to. But that won't be the case for other programs or other websites that you are hacking on, because those websites might not have a whitelist. So you could use any other domain to exfiltrate data like the request bin. So this is the home, this is the lab, this is the account login page, this is the expert server, and this is the live chat thing. So expert server is this. So this is the URL that your victim would be opening. So this is not solved rare. So this is expert. So this is the head that would be sent. So basically you are crafting a response here. So whenever a victim opens this, what would be shown to the victim? Like if I go to view expert right now, I should see only hello world here. You could see this. So basically, in the real world, you would be serving this page from your own end and not from this Burp collaborator thing or this lab. So you would be serving an HTML page with the request body here. Let's proxy the traffic through Burp. So let's reload this. So you could see these requests are coming here. So the WebSocket switching protocol is the status code is 101. So you could see here that these are the 101 status code. And if I show you these, like this is the chat page, the response is the whole HTML page, this whole page. But if I go to the above, this is also a switching protocol, and like this is also a switching protocol, the get request to academy lab header. And if I see the WebSocket history, the outgoing message is to the chat endpoint. You could see the /chat endpoint. So this academy lab header is not very important to us, so we should explore this chat one. So you could see these are the generic headers that's there. There's this cookie which helps identify which user is like doing a chat, and then there's WebSocket key, which is a random key, but it's not an anti-CSRF token. So we could see that there's no anti-CSRF token here, right? So let's see the WebSocket history. So the client send a ready request. Based on that, they got the response now chatting with Alpine. That's what is being printed here. So let's type something. Hello. So you could see that outgoing was hello and incoming was okay. Sorry. So incoming was typing, and then now ask Alexa, right? So this would be here. Ask Alexa. User Alpine. So what we have to do is we have to make a CSRF exploit for this particular endpoint. So I have the exploit ready here. So this is the script. So let me explain you the script. So here I'm trying to create a WebSocket request using this like JavaScript thing. So new WebSocket request is being sent. WSS is basically the WebSocket protocol, WebSocket secure. The earlier one used to be WS like HTTPS and HTTP. Now WebSocket.open. So there is a start function callback handler that's being called. So the WebSocket would send a ready, because as you would have seen here that the first request is to be sent as ready, and then you would get the response back. So you would send a ready here. So handle reply. So on message is the callback handler, like whenever the WebSocket that connection that has been generated. So there's a callback, the on message. So what happens when a message is received? So that's what is defined in the on message callback. Callback is basically a function. So handle reply function is handling that, and what it is doing is it's fetching your Burp collaborator domain, and then adding the event.data, and mode is no course. No course is for so that you could do a inter-domain communication, no cross origin. So there's no cross origin request sharing. So basically there is a cross origin request sharing. There's no check on that. So event.data contains the message that's being sent to the WebSocket. So the messages here are like this incoming message. So this is the message here. So this whole thing is the message. So what this would do is whenever the victim opens this page, so this WebSocket connection would be made, and then after the messages have been received on the WebSocket URL, since it's being logged in through the user, So the chat messages would also be received here, and this would have been prevented if there would have been a CSRF token here or anti-CSRF token here. So when the exploit or this exploit page is being opened by the victim on his server, on his browser, so automatically a WebSocket connection would be created, and that would try to exfiltrate all the chat messages that the victim had. So the WebSocket URL would be this. So this, let's copy this. So make sure you remove the HTTPS thing because we are using the WSS protocol. And your burp collaborator, so you need to have a burp collaborator client. So just copy this. So all this is ready now. Store the exploit and now view the exploit. So once you click the view exploit, it basically signals the lab that okay, now exploit is ready. So you could send the victim to work on this exploit or to load this exploit so that we could complete the mission. However, in real world, you would have to send this link to the victim, or the link has to be reached to the victim. To show impact, you need not send the actual link, but you could you could write it as a POC and tell the triager that okay, you need to just visit this link, and you could see that your data is being sniffed out. Let's poll now. So you could see that a lot of requests has come here. Let's sort it by time. So let's check one of the requests. So request to collaborator. So this was the hello request. Then again hello. So you could see you are connected to Halpine. So let's send this to decoder. So this was a message that's being snipped. So let's check some recent messages. How can I help you? So let's check this. Send to decoder. I forgot my password. That wasn't what I wrote here, right? It's being sniffed from the victim side. Then this ask Alexa thing. Then again request collaborator. So this is where the actual flag or the value that is the password that's being sent here. So since I've already done it once earlier, so I know. So Alpine, you can no problem. Carlos, so Carlos is the victim, and it's M something something. So let's copy this password. So we would go back to the account login page. You see that lab is not so. The username is Carlos, and password is this. So let's log into this. So once you have logged in, you could see the lab is solved now. So that was pretty easy, I think. Only thing that you need to know was the CSRF thing. There was some issue accessing the live chat feature again after solving that. So I made another account so as to demonstrate that how you could use the request bin to exfiltrate data. Like if you don't have the burp collaborator or so now you would be connected here. So you could go to the expert server and then go to the request bin site. I would suggest that log into this so as to create a private bin. You could make a public bin as well, like, and this will have and no one is gonna like view your data. So just copy this link. So what this is a public endpoint like a burp collaborator one. So any request that's coming to this would be displayed here in this event part, and you could easily see what data is being sent to that request. So the best thing would be that if you have a public endpoint like a DigitalOcean server or similar kind of thing, so you could exfiltrate data on your public endpoint, and then that would be specifically only to you. The Burp Collaborator thing has a DNS also, so you could see the DNS request as well. It's not the same as if you would have your own server or if you are having a request bin. Because on these servers or these public endpoints, you only get the HTTP request that's being called and not the DNS request that being made for the particular domain. So now we'll go to the exploit server. So we have our exploit code written here. So let's change this, sorry, to the request bin endpoint, and So this is the chat endpoint, right? So change this as well. Make sure you remove the HTTPS here. So now we paste it here through the exploit. Now, if you would view the exploit, you would only get the chat history for your, because the session that's being maintained here is your only. And even if the victim tries to access it, like the port trigger, there would be a victim from the port trigger client that would be trying to access this so that their password is getting leaked and you solve the lab. So that won't be displayed on the request bin because they have, I think, some limitations so as to not send requests to burp non-burp collaborator.net domain. So like they won't be sending requests to any public endpoint. So you could see now chatting with Alpine. So this was the only message that was written here. So you could see that this was the only thing that's being exfiltrated. So these messages would also get exfiltrated once I will reload this page. So it would automatically get exfiltrated here. You could see that. So you could see that this was being accessed by the victim as well. This is the other domain. This is my IP. So this was accessed from the victim as well, but since the victim wasn't allowed to visit any other domain except the bug collaborator.net one, so it might have some restrictions on their own server end. So that's why we couldn't see any GET request coming here, and that's why we if when we use the bug collaborator.net domain, we could see the password coming out. I think now that's pretty much clear as to how you could use it on any other bug bounty program to exfiltrate data. If there are any questions, feel free to ask it in the comment section or ask it on the subreddit. So before we start with the reports, let me show you some of the articles. So this is one of the articles that I stumbled upon while I was looking for this topic in January. And then I went on to the Portugal Labs doc and the lab. So this is quite a good article. So you should go and read this. So the link would be in the description as well. So check that out. Then let's come to the reports. So lack of origin check leads to cross-site WebSocket hijacking. So this was submitted to Coda.io and $800 were awarded for this. So Fisher discovered a CSRF-related vulnerability in Coda docs by which an attacker could crack. So that could make modifications to a specific without the victim knowing. So basically, it's a CSRF attack, and the victim would know, and there would be a request that was being sent that would modify the Coda docs. So when opening a WebSocket channel, the origin header was not checked by the server, leaving the application access to a cross-site WebSocket hijack. So the problem was first out by Christian Schneider in his blog. So this was the Christian Schneider's blog that I was talking about. So that was, I think, the first blog about this. Because WebSocket are not restricted by browser's same origin policy SOP. So if there's no defensive mechanism in place, so any WebSocket communication could be easily done on a malicious page targeting the vulnerable WSS endpoint. So the vulnerable WSS endpoint is the chat endpoint in this case. So further it mentions how you could do a steps to reproduce thing and the impact. So the impact was that the victim could be made to do any operations that was being done using the WebSocket communication. He could also read sensitive information since the WebSocket communication is full duplex. This is one of the reports where you could modify the document on the coda.io based on the CSWH attack. So now let's go to the second report. So the second report is about account takeover using CSWH attack. So it again references the Christian Schneider's blog. So first he verified whether the URL was vulnerable to CSWH. So he opened the WSS web endpoint on the websocket.org eco.html page, and he made the same connection. So basically, you didn't have to write the script and all those things to snip it. You could just go to this website and you could just paste the WSS endpoint here. So like if I do copy this here and I paste it here, and if I do a connect it here, so instead of rocket, I should send ready because ready is what needs to be sent. So I have to get the response from the server. So you could see that user is now connected, chatting with me. So if I send a hi here, it would automatically get shown here. So all the messages would be printed here. If So we see that we are not getting any logs here because origin is being checked, and since the origin is websocket.org and not this .websecurity.academy.net, so that's why we are not getting messages here. So this researcher, he found that there wasn't any origin check, and he could easily exfiltrate data here. So once he established that WebSocket connection on the new tab, he received the response which contained a forgot password ID, and so the forgot password ID was null. So it was null because there wasn't any reset password or forgot password request instantiated. So once you instantiate the forgot password ID on the victim's account, so that would be populated with the forgot password ID string, and then you need to just like sniff that through the WebSocket exploit. And once you have sniffed that, you need to visit the forward password ID link. So this person also uses the pipe drive, the request bin thing, I guess. So now you have the forward password token, and you could reset the account of the victim using that. So basically there were two things. So you chain the cross-site WebSocket hijacking attack and got the forward password link or the forward password token. And using that forward password token, you did the account takeover thing. So these were the two reports that I was to talk about. So similar kind of thing happened with the report that I submitted. So I reported two bugs to a particular private bug bounty program based on WebSocket. So what happened there used to be an organization, and you could sign up as an organization admin or as a normal user, and you could be added to the organization by the admin. So there were RBAC controls which prevented people to look into some other things specific to the organization and only look to the things that were related to them. So there was audit log, and IP was also being logged, and that was being sent to the WebSocket to all the users connected to the organization. So that was leaking the basically IP address and email address of the user that was performing any action in the organization. Even though RBAC controls were there in place, and the IP address was not supposed to be seen by everyone apart from the admin. Like the admin could see in the audit logs, but not everyone. So the other bug was that even after I was kicked out of the organization, my WebSocket connection still persisted. So I could see whatever actions that were being done in the organization. So these were the two bugs. So before I conclude this session, I would like to talk about the subreddit. So we have a subreddit, Hacking Simplified. A lot of people have come there, joined the subreddit. Do come join the subreddit. You would see a lot of interesting links and articles being posted daily by me and as well as other members of the community. So hope you had an informative session today. Stay tuned. There would be other video coming this week as well. Thank you.